Hi, daddies. I'm really excited about today's episode. I'm talking to the co-founder of Raw Daisies, which is an East Coast community-based production company that puts an emphasis on community events, on profit sharing with the artist and producers. And they're just really cool. Like the aesthetic is giving underground Gen Z, like smokes a cigarette when they're drunk, but also volunteers to canvass for the like third party candidate on the weekend. There's a lot of talk on their website and their platform about the intersection between art and politics, which I'm finding really fascinating today when we're dealing with like yet again unprecedented times in the United States. I myself, as an artist and as a writer, have been thinking a lot about what I want to say, and how I reflect on these crazy times that we're living in. And I'm really excited to talk to Katie about the same thing. The other thing that I find really interesting is this article in Vogue Business that's called From Sauna Socials to Run Clubs, Are Community Events Leaders the New Influencers? I feel like they're really onto something here. When we started the company, as you've heard in previous episodes, we weren't really sure if it was going to take off or if people were going to want this thing. And we found overwhelmingly that like millennial, Gen Z, and the generations around it, but like primarily our audience are those age demographics, want this kind of space. And they're investing money in education on themselves. They're investing in this third space that isn't the gym, that isn't, I don't know, your local coffee shop, or like Soho House. Those spaces, valuable in their own right, but I think what people are excited about with something like Raw Daisies or Not Your Daddy's Films is really the ability to connect with like-minded folks. I'm really excited to hear what Katie from Raw Daisies has to say about all of the things and more. And I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. So if you're catching this episode, then chime in on our Patreon, which is only $5 a month. It's literally less than a cup of coffee, or on our Instagram or TikTok. We're all over socials. See you there.
I'm your daddy.
I can be smart when it's important.
I'm your daddy. I'm
Sorry to this
I'm your daddy.
Welcome to Daddy Dailies, a podcast hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films. On a film set, dailies are sent out after a shoot day so you can see the work in progress. Daddy Dailies are conversations that go behind the scenes so you can see what work went into the process and be better armed to succeed in the industry. Daddy Dailies, hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films.
Welcome back to Daddy Dailies. I'm your host, Vika Stubblebine, and one of the co-founders of Not Your Daddy's Films. I am here today with Katie Elle Weinstein. Katie is an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, like all of you listening, the multi-hyphenate central, and has worked across theater and film. She has a BFA from drama at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts and is the co-founder and CEO of Raw Daisies, which, if you don't know what they are, you're about to hear all about it, but it's truly a very cool production company and organization. Like, it's giving cool Gen Z millennial like crossover vibes where it's like underground club that your cool friend knows about. So kudos on the marketing. As a producer, Katie's credits include Finders Keepers, Bleeding Juniper, Howard, and more. And on stage, she's performed with the MacArthur Theater Center, the North Carolina Symphony, and Lincoln Center Education. Her artistic collaborators include Bob Krakauer, Stephen Wadsworth, and Laura Braza. Katie is you work right now. Sorry, I did read this before. You work at Princeton right now.
Yes, yeah. So that's my day job. I work with the sociologist Matthew Desmond, and he wrote the book Evicted, if you're familiar with that.
That's fascinating.
I really deeply believe in the research that he is doing, and specifically around housing, but branching out to other departments as well. So yeah, I can talk more about that if desired, but
For those who don't know the book or the philosophy behind it, what's it about?
Essentially, basically what he argued and is still continuing to argue is that eviction is not a symptom of poverty, but rather a cause of poverty. It's making it worse.
Yeah.
And his book really broke through in investigative journalism and really kind of reshaped how people report on poverty. And it's truly anecdotal despite it being nonfiction. So you're following all of these families, and it's such a strong call to action without even really needing to say it, because you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're having that first person experience with the vicariously through.
Yeah. For a while, I was in a different department doing video producing work. I edited a lot of videos for Princeton, from neuroscience to blockchains to quantum physics, and that was really, really exciting. But when I found the opportunity to work with Matt, I was like, I would be over the moon. And yeah.
That's kind of the perfect transition, because Raw Daisies is a production company that is founded by you and your co-founder, Michael Thader, and it is rooted in Princeton, New Jersey, but operates nationwide. And you're committed to producing original, boundary-pushing work, but also building a sustainable, equitable, and accessible model for independent film and theater production. And I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot lately, like the intersection between art and politics and the human condition and like poverty and all of these different issues, social issues that we deal with. So I feel like that's kind of, it makes sense that you're working in both areas to me.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I always thought I knew what I wanted my life to look like. And to some extent, that has been the case that I've been on. But if anything, like really my morals have been kind of a guiding light, and they have gotten stronger as I've like progressed throughout my years. And that's why I think it was so important for Fader and I to make the company that we have made, and obviously are still continuing to make, because we were getting just a little frustrated. And I think this industry, as I'm sure you know, based on all the strikes that we have seen, sometimes cannot treat the artists with as much respect as I think they deserve. And so part of being, I think, a producer and a leader, or an entrepreneur, if you will, is taking that risk and helping us go that route. And so it's very exciting to build a company, because you can experiment and try these things that you deeply believe in, especially when you don't see it around you. And obviously now things are moving, and other people are starting to do these things as well too, which is great, because we are powerful together.
Yeah. How did you and Vader meet and eventually start the company?
That's also a funny long story. We met in 8th grade performing arts class. I know.
Oh,
so way back. And we became friends, and then we became best friends, and then we became creative partners, and then we became business partners. And so it just kept growing and growing and growing. But like, he went to Johns Hopkins for his degree, and I went to North Carolina. But despite that distance, we still stayed in touch. He would send me scripts, I would send him scripts. So we just stayed in touch all throughout those years. And by the time we graduated, it still, the creative connection still was there. And I think that's something to treasure, because that's not always the case. I think we dream of finding longtime collaborators, and I think the way we are able to communicate one another is really great. And I also think he's an amazing writer. And so for me, while I love acting, as you had mentioned, I went to school for drama, it's always been about the script to me. And I find so much delight in helping a writer realize their vision. And he's doing other things as well too. He's a great producer, great director.
And has a band, right?
Yeah, he does have a band. Yeah, so
I did my homework.
No, that's amazing. So one of the events that we do in SummerFest is the series called Mayhem, where we combine concerts and screenings. And last year we did a premiere of his film Howard, and his band scored the movie and then also did a concert after.
That's really cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did they play?
I love those.
Did they play the music from the film or like other stuff?
Their discography. So separate stuff. But this year we did a different take on it. We had our Mayhem last week, and instead of doing just one film, one band, we decided to open up to the community and do open submissions for short films. And we had a lot of submissions, which was so exciting because I really only made like one post and we got so many. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And so many people that I had never heard of had found about us and this event and reached out. So we showcased 12 films, and then we had 4 bands play after. So
That's
it was just
awesome.
It befit the name Mayhem, you know?
Yeah, seriously. Where do you guys like how do you find spaces to partner with for the SummerFest and just in general?
So this Mayhem was at this place called Berlin. And I had visited there, seeing a couple of my friends who were in a band perform a couple years ago. And I thought the venue was really great. And so, kind of on a whim, I emailed them and asked. I honestly didn't think they were going to say yes, but they were like, oh my gosh, this sounds so cool. We would love to do it. And I think they're wanting to potentially have a residency with us and extend it in the future. So, trial and error, bopping around the town, seeing what places fit your vibe.
I mean, that's what we did with Not Your Daddies as well, because we're turning 3 in September. And like for literally a year, we were operating out of clubs and literally like underground, which is funny because LA doesn't really have basements in general, but like the club that we were most often hosting our events in was underground. And it felt cool because like I felt like you were discovering something. It kind of reminds me of like vintage shopping where you're like, I found this thing that like other people don't necessarily know about yet. And then, you know, it grew and grew and we couldn't be in that space anymore because it was the capacity for bodies was too small, but it was really fun. And it was cool to connect with people who aren't necessarily like filmmakers, but are creative and artists and are like, yeah, what you're doing is awesome. And I want to be a part of it in some way.
Yeah, it's beyond just the film or just the project itself.
Yeah.
It's the whole mission. And
Totally.
I think, it's a lot easier and more fulfilling to support when it's this idea as opposed to just this one project, you know. It can sustain for a lot longer.
And so you guys met, you became business partners, and what were you like feeling a lack for, or what were you excited about that sort of led to the creation of this company?
Well, I'll start by saying I'm a very pragmatic person, and the formation of Raw Daisies happened unintentionally. I did not foresee myself being the co-founder of this company
and CEO.
And CEO of the company. If you asked me or told me that when I graduated college, I'd be like, what? You know? And it's funny how our lives work in those mysterious, great ways. But then I think holistically and retrospectively, I'm like, oh, no, that actually makes sense that we're on this path. But to answer your question, we had been making short films for a couple years together. And at that time, you know, if anyone tells you that they're going to make money off a short film, they're probably lying to you. Yeah.
Lucky. And like we have had people, just for the listener who's like, fuck, we have had people who've people have seen their short at Not Your Daddies and they've gone on to make the feature version or, you know, find reps. Like there are I think a short film is a stepping stone to your creative voice and also developing that and also like meeting your collaborators or reps or producers or, you know, whatever.
100%. 100%.
But I agree with you. You're not making money off that.
Yeah. And so that's, to your point, we were mostly doing that to hone our craft and build our community and just like put the hours in. But then coincidentally, one of my friends is a very niche Japanese woodworker. And he had approached me asking if I was ever behind the camera and wanted to help build his audience online. I had never really been behind the camera at that point, but I was like, yes, 100%. Well, I can learn. I'm sure. So from that, expanded my skills and then had the idea of, oh, what if there is a commercial side of this company that can then fund all of the narrative projects that we want to make?
Smart.
Because that seems to me to be a sustainable way to continue and be able to take risks as opposed to being not subjected, but to wait for the okay to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think grants are awesome. I think they're really competitive, and I just was becoming impatient. And I think that's why like micro budgets are
Yeah.
the talk of the town, because people want to do what they want to do and they want to reclaim that power as opposed to just waiting for the golden ticket to do what they know that they can do and love. So that was like the first seed for Raw Daisies. But then we really became legitimate when we were working on a really, really big short film with a bunch of extras, a bunch of locations, bunch of actors, housing, all these things that I was like, I don't want anyone to sue me. So we're going to have an LLC.
Yep.
And I've thus learned that you're actually supposed to make an LLC per film as opposed to just making a production company. So, part of it was my naivete being like, okay, this is how I do it. And my accountant was like, you should probably do this. And I was like, okay. But it's really turned out to be this beautiful, beautiful gift. And I love acting and I want to do it for the rest of my life. But as I said, the script is important to me. And this company has allowed me to branch out and do the other things that I want to do and help support other voices as opposed to just kind of working on my own stuff. Because I think, and you guys are actors as well, too. Maybe you'll resonate with this. I had booked a great regional production of a wonderful play that was really awesome, but I found myself in that environment not being fully fulfilled and not really loving that nomadic lifestyle. And I didn't know that until I was in that world.
Sure.
And so, it's all of these small moments that help us realize the bigger picture that help clarify our path. And so throughout the past 4 years, it's really just intensified, and seeing the people who have come to us and who really believe in us too, it makes me light the torch higher,
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it sounds like you really have learned by doing, like making those short films with Michael, and then, to the level of like a really big one, and like, Googling, I'm sure, how to form an LLC or like how to do
it's easier than you would think, believe it or not.
Totally. I mean, and I think that can be really daunting. I feel like a lot of the conversations I have with not aspiring because they're making things, but like filmmakers who are putting their own money into projects is like, how do I make this sustainable? How do I develop my craft, make things, and have that turn into a career? And I feel like something that you guys are doing is giving artists a space to make things. And I'm curious, how are you figuring out which artists and projects you want to work on and like produce and make under the Raw Daisies banner? And then is there a way that you figured out to make it like financially not a money sink?
100%. So I think there are two parts to your question. To go back to the first one about particular projects, I also want to give a shout out to our amazing creative producers, Calissa Lavery and Luke Safara on our Raw Daisies team. Amazing. Couldn't do it without them. It's really a group effort. Or other friends, even a little outside of that, Sam Lassiter, Tess Riley, all these folks help us make it possible. It really is a community group effort. But the core Raw Daisies folks, myself, Michael, Luke, and Callie, are putting in hours of work and energy, and we're all creatives and artists. So the first projects oftentimes are our personal endeavors because, they should be able to see the fruits of their labor in some way. In the fall, I'm like looking at the calendar from a bird's eye view. I'm really, really excited to make a short film that Callie wrote called Carpet, following a young girl leaving an abusive home and finding solace in another young girl's home. And that's going to be like micro short films. And so this also connects to your second point, which is intentionally picking scripts that are not high budget, right? Because I think to some
Producible
extent
yeah.
that are producible, right? Because when you read a lot of scripts, you can see like, ooh, this is probably going to cost a lot of money.
This
Whereas
has aliens. Yeah.
right, exactly. Like Luke has a short film that I do eventually want to make, but it's super sci-fi and like the production design would be crazy. That I'm like, maybe we can put this, in
Sure.
our vault. That will happen like later on. But I'm also, like I said, very, very open to other people's works, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to do a community-based mayhem this year, as opposed to last year, where we can really champion and meet a bunch of more filmmakers. Because I'm always wanting to meet more writers and more filmmakers, and that was really exciting because I was like, I would want to produce one of this filmmaker's next short films,
Mm-hmm.
So constantly attending things and seeking connections, and knowing what is possible financially at this stage, because I don't think like we want to be doing micro shorts or micro plays for forever. It is just being realistic with what you have available right now.
Yeah.
To then lead into your second question, I have a day job. That is why I work at Princeton. I am not a Nepo baby. Despite my last name, I'm not related. And so I've always needed to be financially independent. I've always needed to find a way to juggle paying my bills and making these movies, right?
It's the life of an artist, like, especially coming from that theater background. Like, theater doesn't, even the highest paying theater doesn't pay at the same level that, you might see when it comes to television or film. For those listening, this is probably old hat, but it is the life of an artist to be like, I gotta pay my bills and I need that like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then that gives me the space to like pursue my art.
Yeah. And so part of our idea with SummerFest is to try to not just rely on the traditional theatrical distribution. Let's try to eventize these short films, right?
Yeah.
Let's try to get people to remember the experience. Maybe they see our short film while they're on the dance floor, or maybe they're on the dance floor and then need to take a break and then go, or just finding more ways to get people out. And I think getting out there, being with people is a new way to experience a short film. I also think like festivals are great, and short films, like you said, are launching pads, but also I don't think it's or should be the only way that films can be seen. A lot of people don't have access or the ability to go to various film festivals. And obviously there are platforms like YouTube and Shortverse, which is amazing. But we're also trying to cultivate relationships within people. So those profits, all of our events are pay what you can, because that's also very important to us as well too, based on the craziness that is the times. And people can check out the projects that we are working on. We have a little like station where they can read the script, look at the pitch deck. We have
That's awesome.
An old vintage style TV that kind of breaks down our process.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So basically, in short, we're trying to meet people where they are, show the work there, have them, if they can and if they want to, invest, because then that makes them a part of it. It's really like a grassroots way of filmmaking, fundraising.
I love it. That's really, really cool. And I don't know if you read this article, but really recently in Vogue Business, they were talking about communities, in-person communities, being sort of the like new influencer, because people post-pandemic now going out again in real life, like they want community and connection. And the article was tying it to the loneliness epidemic. But I think something that I have noticed amongst my friends and those who are coming to, I'm sure, both of our events, it's like they want to find community and they want to like invest in themselves and each other. So I think people being really proactive about where they put their time and money and energy, because I don't know about you, but as much as I love going to AMC, I'm like, wow, another sequel. Okay. Like another reboot. And there's ones I'm excited for. Like I will be sat for Practical Magic, but I'm just like, I really I really am going to all these spaces to see what younger, and I mean that like more in a mentality state, artists
Hungry.
hungry are making and what they're commenting on, because I'm not really getting that in the mainstream theater space. Unless you
Yeah.
something like Oh Hi, which is like I really enjoyed. And I was like, oh, this is really different. And it's a small budget, but it got a wide theatrical release. And I'm like, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sorry Baby, I've already seen it
I love,
twice.
me
I thought
too.
it was beautiful and just amazing. I like dragged Michael with me. I was like, "You gotta see this; it's so
Yeah.
good."
It's,
And I will say, which I think is a testament to the film. It was a small theater, and this older gentleman was like leaving at the same time I was, and he was like, "You like the movie?" And I was like, "I loved it." And he was like, "Me too. It was quirky." I was like, "Yeah, and really funny." And he was like, "Yeah, in a weird way." And I was like, "All right, that's a win to me."
it's a win. Yeah. No, I love that. I'm curious just to know a little bit more about you personally and like your background as an actor and like all of your training. How has that informed, I guess, your role as a producer and um, the kinds of projects that you get excited about?
To circle it back to what you said before about like being alongside your peers, I think what's really important to me is wanting to see my peers and my friends succeed. I think at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and like
Yeah,
I want to see my fellow co-stars, my fellow directors, producers rise up, because what a gift and what a joy that is. But I
totally.
think sometimes our industry can be very cutthroat and competitive. I mean, there are award shows. That is a competition, And so I want to stress that like part of I think coming from a conservatory background where you're constantly collaborating with one another has really made me cherish my peers. And so that is one answer to your question.
I'm so aligned with what you're saying about getting excited to see your peers succeed and all of us coming up together. And the collaborative nature of theater is like just really infuses everything that I do. And it sounds like for you too. But I think experience is good and bad. Like, okay, for example, my senior year at UCLA, the grad students chose plays and because they were directing them. And
Mm-hmm.
there was one play with roles for women and they weren't doing any like gender bending or anything. And I was like, okay, I will write something for my very talented, like the department, I think what like my year especially was like 70% women identifying folks. It made me really angry. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write this. I'm going to make this thing with my friends. And it turned into this beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that taught me that I was like, oh, I really actually like producing and I like directing and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I think you're spot on. And I think too, you can see like I have crazy talented friends that are not repped by the industry, right? And that makes me angry.
Yeah.
One of my friends was dropped, and that makes me angry. And I believe in them so much that makes me want to produce their work as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what else? I think also actors read a lot of scripts, and I think they have a great taste of what is truthful and what is dishonest. And I think all actors should try to write. I know some people don't want to try, but I'm like, you read so much text that like I think you can surprise yourself. And obviously in the beginning it may not be great, but that's like the part of
It's the process.
it's the process, right? Because for a while our taste is going to be up here and like what we can do is here, and it's like through years and years and years that we're going to be able to like meet that. But yeah, I think if a succinct way to answer your question is to champion the stories that I think need to be told that aren't like you said,
Yeah.
by people who seem to be forgotten to some extent, that I deeply believe in and want to help uplift, and work that surprises me. I'm always, I don't know about you, but I like a little quirk, a little
Oh yeah.
weirdness and risks and whatnot. I think
Yeah.
that's good.
Switching gears to go back to what you were talking about with Mayhem, it's part of your SummerFest, and
Mhm.
there's like such a variety of events that you guys put together. There was like an event on political organizing, there was speed dating, and like all these different elements that I'm not sure everyone at first glance would be like, oh, the film production company is going to put together like that type of event. What goes into the planning for it, and how do you decide what types of events you want to include?
Yeah, great questions. They were this year's. So we actually
Okay,
just
great.
did our speed dating
How did
on
it go? I
Tuesday.
have to know.
Great. We have like sheets where people like notate that we can then pair them. But before we were even able to do that, people went on a date and then they hung out for the rest of the night all together. That I was like, oh my God, that's
Cute.
amazing.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So really successful. And with Fight Night, this older gentleman, so we were doing it in Bushwick. I don't know how familiar you are with New York, but it's based in Brooklyn. And he was from the Bronx, which is just way up, at least an hour travel. And he had a cane and he came all the way down to our Fight Night.
Wait,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, but to answer your question of how we pick them or how we decide upon them, two things. One, going back to what I was saying before, like our goal really with Raw Daisies is to meet people with where they're at. Oh, people are feeling pretty helpless or not love struck. What's the opposite? Lovelorn.
Yeah.
And so let's have a speed dating event. Let's try to foster community there. And also what was really eye-opening with that is none of them had ever heard about Raw Daisies before, but they saw speed dating and then they came and then learned about the film projects that we're working on, the theater projects that we're doing from our manifesto that we have on a table that are going to then come to the event next that we are throwing to see our movies.
Maybe
So,
on a date.
Maybe on a date, you never know. And I think with political organizing, that can seem far, but I think what is really important to me and Michael with Raw Daisies is being pretty honest and upfront about what we believe in. I think it shouldn't be a hot take. And I know some people want to separate film from politics or art from politics, but I just don't think that is possible. And
being alive is kind of inherently political. Like, so if art is reflecting our experiences, like that comes into play.
Oh yeah. And you show what you believe in, like through the dollars that you spend, right? So it manifests in so many ways, and we deeply believe in that. We believe in sharing profits with the artists and equipping people with the knowledge and the strength to be able to fight back in the ways that they want to do, I think is important to us. And so that's how Fight Night came to be. Coincidentally, Michael's sister also started an organization down in DC called Rising Organizers. So that was how we became affiliated with the presenter as well too. It kind of comes from the writer's room, if you will, of the core Raw Daisies folks just ideating what it is that we find pressing at the time. I'm sure next SummerFest will be different. Last year we had more readings involved. I will always champion Mayhem to be included because I personally love
very
combining it. Yeah, and I think it's just like I said, innovating and trying to come up with more ways to showcase and champion our works and other people's work as well too. But then again, trying to do it in a sustainable, equitable way. We're not just marketing one particular film to grab audiences. It's much bigger than that. And I think, like I said, that will sustain over time.
Yeah. How are you marketing your events? Like you were saying that people came to speed dating, but didn't necessarily know about Raw Daisies' other events and arms.
Yeah, different strategies. Our intern says we need to be doing more TikToks, so working on that.
I'm feeling too much of a millennial, but I'm trying.
Yeah. No, she kept saying that, and I was like, Vivian, I'm trying. Okay, we'll do it. More TikToks. But my tagline's going to be like, our summer intern told us that we should make more TikToks. But no, sometimes it's just on foot putting flyers around New York, which you'd be surprised. We have musical chairs this Sunday, and as Callie was hanging it up, people were taking photos being like, what is this event? What's going on?
Which is literally a giant game of musical chairs, right?
Which is literally just a giant game of musical chairs, yes.
I think that is so So for the listeners, we were talking about this before we started recording. I also grew up in New Jersey. I have a ton of family in New York City. But to me, that event is so East Coast, like so New York City coded. Like I love it and I would so be there. But I feel like if I put up a flyer, like, I don't know, on Beverly Boulevard here in LA, people would be like, the fuck? Like,
What? Yeah.
not because it's not cool, but they'd be like, am I going to go out to a park and I don't know who's going to be there? Or like, not that it's a, but I think
Sure.
that they should because it's so cool. It's so fun.
Well,
It's like those lookalike contests or something.
yeah, exactly. And that was actually the point of inspiration that Calissa came up with. It could be just like this.
Yeah.
And part of the marketing strategy for that was her addressing people's concern, like, oh, do I actually want to go? So what we did was film a couple of our friends hoisting up some foldable chairs and getting on the subway, being like, oh, it's too crowded. There are people. Look, you brought a chair. You can actually have a seat. And then you can get off so easily and head up there.
So, that's so smart.
Yeah, marketing in a way that like addresses potential elements of concern. But having fun with it too. And then, yeah, physical flyers, website work, Instagram, digital, word of mouth too. I mean, it was so cool to hear you say it. It sounds like an underground here, because another point of inspiration for us was political groups of the 60s handing out like flyers at like 2 a.m. in a basement,
Your aesthetic overall, like the graphic design and the artwork for Mayhem or on your, everyone should check out the Raw Daisies website. There's really cute screen printed merch and you had an event where you could screen print your own stuff. And I think the hands-on, literally tactile element of all of that, I think is really appealing to like what people, myself included, are craving right now. I don't want to just go sit. I do want to go sit in a theater and watch a movie, but if I'm going to go to a community event, I kind of want it to be more than that.
For sure. And I think, we, like you said, screen print all of our merch, and at the event, people saw us doing it. And I think that, I don't know, it made people see the vision more clearly, I guess.
Yeah. And you were talking about your profit sharing model. And I was looking a little bit into this because I'm so curious how you all do it and how it works. So I'd love for you to explain that to the listeners. And also, in the research, saw that Sing Sing, one of my favorite movies from the last year, also used a profit sharing model where basically all the actors were paid the same rate and were given equal equity in the profit share of the film's earnings. And is that how it works for Raw Daisies, or do you have like a modified version?
Yeah, I think that's what it exists when it's in film. I think theater's a little different in the sense that you can see it a bit more immediately with the profits. And that's why I think like with film, you need to pay people like for sure, because you are gambling to some extent whether or not you will be making that money.
For sure.
Whereas at least for our theatrical productions, I know some Broadway shows don't make back their money, but at least like we were, that it was a bit easier to see.
Yeah.
But yes, people in film need to be paid their day rates, ideally at an equal rate. Obviously, sometimes people will try to negotiate, but I try to be as upfront about the budget as possible. I think producers need to be very honest about the budget. And, if someone can't or doesn't want to, that's okay, Hopefully they don't take offense and we won't take offense because it's just not the right time, the right rate. But you do need to pay people because you may not necessarily make those profits. But if eventually you do, then great. Then it's a group effort and everyone.
Well, that's interesting.
Because like actors are amazing and I love them, but I also think it makes me really angry when someone is getting paid millions and millions of dollars and someone is working minimum wage, really, really lugging. And I totally understand that star power can like drive audiences to like to get that. But I love crew, and I think crew is fundamental to making movies,
Yeah.
And so that's also why the profit splitting model exists too, because.
So are you saying that all of the crew members get the same rate, like DP versus a PA, or is it more on like the actors are all getting the same rate?
I think I could be mistaken, but I thought Sing Sing was being paid the same rate.
Yes. That's what I read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, that's what we are trying to do as well too. That's at least the goal. And I know, some people could be like, well, why is this PA making the same amount as the DP? And like, so, which I totally hear, but I think when it's a smaller crew, because right now, again, we are
Or like a
doing
micro
smaller
short. Yeah. And
productions.
you're all
Everyone's
probably doing
lifting.
more than your actual job, honestly, because I mean, I don't know, but like when I'm making stuff with my friends, it's like, who's got hands, who can help with this and who can do that.
Right.
I do understand that. Yeah.
And then I think potentially in a bigger sense, some percentages in the back end can like fill that difference, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It does. It does. It's really fascinating because, coming up in an industry, in the entertainment industry, I feel like are taught how things go. But this industry is really like always changing. And that's something that I try to remind myself of when things aren't like going the way I want them to or whatever. It's like, well, I could also just like make my own system. um,
Yeah. I mean, the Academy was made by people just getting together, being like, we need to organize, I'm
yeah.
reading Oscar Wars right now, and it's kind of crazy how much nothing has changed because they're like, it's going to shut down. We're going to be out tomorrow, out of work, So it's a fascinating read. So definitely recommend it.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So okay, we have time really for like two more questions. And I'm curious, like just on your own personal opinion, like independent film is such a tough game right now. Like I have
Yeah.
such talented friends who have made several independent features. And it's not, it's very rare or it feels very lucky to get like distribution for those films that they've like these features that they've put so much in. And I'm curious what you wish major studios would take more risks on.
Ooh, that's a great question. Maybe allowing the artists to be more involved with the distribution. And I think that's potentially why a lot of filmmakers are trying to self-distribute now, because a lot of distribution deals do not favor them.
Yeah.
But people can be very starry-eyed when getting that offer that they are just like, here you go. But when you read the fine print, you can see that, oh, actually, they're maybe not doing as much as I would like them to.
Yeah.
There's a great article in not this most recent Filmmakers, but the one previous, I think it was volume 33, issue 2, where they talk about how libraries are a great source for independent filmmakers to find distribution in. That's if you're not doing the studio route, but
Yeah.
studios to take a risk, have the artists be involved, have them sit at the table, hear their thoughts. What do they want? Can it be more of a collaborative effort? I'd be curious about that. I think they should take risks on spending less millions and millions and dollars of money on big budgets and more on the smallers. That's not a hot take. We've been saying that for a while, but I still don't really see it happening yet. That I'm like, come on, to your point, maybe less sequels, less revivals. I've read a lot of film history books, and I guess the one thing that I see oftentimes is that the people in power are playing catch up. Or may not necessarily know. Maybe that's like the politest way of saying it. The industry is constantly changing, right? There's always shifts, whether it's a person, whether it's a technology, whether it's color from black and white, whether it's the talkies. I didn't realize until reading this book how most studios at the time did not want to convert to talkies, because when you think about it, it jeopardizes everything, right? But then when you have Warner Brothers being like, we're going to take this risk, we're going to do it, that like changes everything else. And then they're playing catch up to be like, okay, we got to do it now. So take the risk and try, believe in artists, and I don't know, get more comfortable with the fact that like it always will be changing. We'll never know. But also at the same time, like how much of a joy and how much of a gift what we are doing is with
Yeah.
everything around us. Like I think it's easy to forget that at the end of the day, especially when it's a theater, we're playing.
Yeah.
Right? It's called play.
So what is next for Raw Daisies? What's the dream scenario?
What's next immediately, musical chairs and sampler, which is our hybrid rave and movie showcasing event. And then we're going to be doing micro shorts, me, Callie, Sam, just a bunch of people in our network just playing really. And then in the spring doing more of a bigger production, a little bit more geared ironically to film festivals, because we're like, okay, this one we still want to keep one foot in the door. It's not that we're totally like, because as we said, it is beneficial and helpful, but I also think it shouldn't be the only way. In terms of what's next in the bigger picture, I'm open. I want to meet more people. I want to expand beyond just micro features. Or micro short films. I want to meet you guys in person. That sounds
you have to
awesome.
go to LA. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really exciting, and I'm sure you guys probably feel this way too with your company, is that especially in the beginning, it kind of feels limitless of what is possible as long as you understand what you believe in and what your goal is. So
yeah, I think that is so true. I worked as an assistant at Sony Pictures in the TV department for like 5 years ish. And the thing I liked a lot about working there, and I learned a lot, especially about like budgets and, what gets made and greenlit and blah, blah, blah. But I found that being a tiny, tiny cog in such a big wheel, I felt like I had no real say which like, why would I? But like as an assistant into what's getting made, and being in a company where there's 5 of us who work as co-leaders and, split everything, we really get to make all of those calls and create the space that we want to be a part of. And I think that's really special. And that's, any of those grassroots organizations, like political, art, whatever your passion might be, I think that's when it feels the most exciting, is when you really get to get your hands dirty and like get involved and meet like-minded people. Whereas like at a big conglomerate, it's cool for a different reason, but you're not getting as much hands-on until you like really climb that ladder.
Some people really want that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, we discover the environments that we want to inhabit.
So did they pass along the hot take?
Yes, it took me a hot minute to decide what I wanted it to be on, because I will say I was really trying to come up with something spicy and nothing was really landing. But yes, I do have my hot take.
Okay, cool. So for those who might be tuning in for the first time, this is just a film-related hot take. It can be like, okay, someone should have a way bigger career than they do, and why doesn't everybody love X actor? Or it can be like, why do they serve anything but popcorn at the movies? It's disgusting to have like, a real meal there. Like whatever it is, it's just a fun way for us to end the episode.
Yeah.
So Katie, what do you got?
Folks should rent films from their local libraries is my hot take, which I don't know if is really like spicy, but I don't hear people talking about it enough. And I feel like with more and more spaces becoming privatized, whether it be schools, neighborhoods, healthcares, we should really champion and uplift the public spaces left. And I think libraries are beautiful. And obviously every library is different and has different connections and whatnot. But I think people would be surprised how much their library has. I was.
Yeah.
Isabelle Huppert is my favorite actress of all time, and I'm slowly going through her. She's amazing. So I'm slowly going through her filmography, but a lot of her films are not available on streaming, right? And so I, on a whim, went to my library and was like, hey, do you think you'd be able to find The Lace Maker? And they were like, actually, yes. Despite there being 13 copies in the world,
what?
Right? Yeah.
That's crazy.
through an international library loan, which I didn't know existed, I was able to watch this film. And not only was I able to see the performance that catapulted her career, but I was able to watch a film that has become one of my top favorite films that I really wouldn't have been able to see elsewhere.
That's so cool. That's such a good tip. That is a hot take and a hot tip. Yeah. Okay. I love that. What was I going to say for mine? I am blanking. Oh, I know. Okay. My hot take is that something is quote unquote good, or when it sets out, like, it accomplishes what it set out to be, or like when it knows what it is. I feel like I've had conversations lately with people who like don't like a show like new soapy drama, The Hunting Wives. And they're like, it's so bad. I'm like, is it bad or is it just soapy? Like, I'm like, it knows exactly what it is. It is Texas NRA housewives with big hair who do bad things, and it is doing that so well. And so I have a great time. And I really dislike the sentiment that to be good, it has to be prestige or highbrow. I think there's something for everybody. And it kind of reminds me when I hear that of people saying like guilty pleasure, or like this is made specifically for women. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of problems happening there. One, women are the biggest consumers, and the dollars that they spend dictate what happens in capitalism. So that should be a good thing. And two, like, like, I'm sorry, I didn't turn this show on thinking I was going to see like an Oscar-winning screenplay. I turned it on to see people do bad things. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess something that I'm very anti is a elitism, because I feel like art is for everybody.
Yeah, it reminds me of this book, How I Like to Watch. And so I definitely recommend checking it out, because it talks about The Sopranos versus Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
And at the time, but both are amazing. But at the time, Buffy was labeled as like bad TV. But it's like, no, they were doing series-long arcs, season-long arcs. Like, just because it's campy doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And I think like liking something, not liking something, is a personal metric of taste and is subjective. But that's not a critical lens to look at the form. You know, and so. Agree. Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Well, this was so fun. It was so great to talk to you. I'm so excited for musical chairs and to like vicariously follow along on social media. If you're in New York, please go to these events. They're incredible. Meet Katie in person.
I will be there.
Yeah. And if you're in LA, come to a Not Your Daddy's event. We're doing Josie and the Pussycats at the end of this month. And we have our short film screening and party on September 6th. Can people follow you or Raw Daisies? Can you give us some plugs?
Yeah, some handles.
Yeah.
At Raw Daisies. Unfortunately, our TikTok at Raw Daisies was taken because I waited. So it's at Raw Daisies Films, but as you know, we do more than films. And my personal on Instagram is at Katie Hops High. Michael's is fader.mov, like the file.
Love it.
Callie's is at Lismo. Sam is at, Luke is at Not Luke Seth. And our website is rawdaisies.com.
You should check it out right now. You can follow me at Vika Stubbs, and you can follow Daddy Dailies at Daddy Dailies Pod, Not Your Daddies, NYD Films on all the platforms. Thank you, Katie. This has been a joy.
Daddy Dailies is presented by Not Your Daddy's Films, a social impact organization dedicated to educating and empowering women and non-binary creatives in TV and film. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a positive review. And if you want more Daddy episode insights and links to what we talked about, join us on Patreon/NYD Films. Daddy Dailies is produced in partnership with Robert Bailey and edited by Carly Tamarin, Vika Stubblebine, Claudia Restrepo, and Gracie Strauss. See you next time, Daddy.